What is up, everyone? Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Woke as Fuck. Your host, Maximilian Webster, and I have a very special guest for you guys today. His name is Yahoon DeWitt, and I'm going to go ahead and shoot the introduction over to him because he has an awesome story that you guys are going to love. You there?
I'm here. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
I love the name of your podcast. That's so nice. It's so funny. If I can start, we just did a little bit of a centering process, and it's a big part of the process that I do every day after I work with my clients. It's so similar. And when we were doing it, what came to me is that we know each other from a purple blue place. It was not
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That is so crazy that you say that because, you know, that meditation that I just facilitated was something that I've been utilizing straight from my higher self. Like it was a download that, God source, basically when I stopped using Reiki, was like, your energy, your soul flame is mostly blue and purple. And utilizing the gold light and utilizing the blue and the purple is literally like all you need to focus on when it comes to energy healing from now on. So that's so funny that you say that because that's literally all I use now. That's all I use is purple, blue, and gold.
Oh, that's such a confirmation. That's wonderful. I'm glad I shared.
Yeah, thank you so much. Oh my gosh. Okay, awesome. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about your background, your origin story, and we'll go from there.
All right. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. So I am from the early 70s, and at the time there was no YouTube or no Google. So I was, just to give you sort of a backdrop to my story. I was born in the Netherlands, and from the time I was a very little kid, I always looked out into the world as like something is missing. Like there was the world of people that was happening around me, and then I always looked for, I don't know, I would call it spirit or God or source or some proof of this higher existence, or I don't like calling it higher, but it's different existence that I knew existed. I just wasn't seeing it anywhere. And so going through life for the first, I'd say half of it, as far as old as I'm now, looking back at it, I was always sort of checked out. I was never fully present in my body. And as a result of it, it was hard for me to navigate physical world reality. So it was hard for me to be in school systems. It was hard for me in jobs. I looked at society from the outside in. And, through the conditioning that happens to, I think, all of us on the planet, I was conditioned to take my permissions and my normal from this limited world that I saw outside of myself. So there was this sort of dichotomy or conflict within me that I felt very different on the inside from what I was seeing on the outside. And I remember when I was 8 years old, my parents had left the house at night and left me and my brother alone for a moment, and I would go down and watch TV. And I remember watching a movie, and I've never been able to find it, so I'm just not sure if it's really happening in our current reality, but it was a movie that portrayed life after a nuclear war, and I got so upset, and and realized that if I were to catch the news that we live in a world that is ruled by these little, mostly white men that they just run by their ego and they're not very evolved at all. And so it just made me very worried about our planet. And so I've been very concerned with the environment and animals and just life as it happens, as opposed to, the limited way of thinking that I saw sort of was running the planet. So I became very concerned with that. And also what happened when I was 8 years old, my mom, who was a librarian, had brought home a book about out-of-body experiences from the Monroe Institute. And this was the first time that I read anything outside of myself that reflected some truth that I knew, things that were just true. So that was, finally some recognition where I could say, finally, I knew it. This was all true. It's just not, I've just not seeing it around me, but it's true. So life happened. I dropped out of high school. I could not I didn't fit in. I mean, I already knew I was gay, and that my sense of my gender was, I thought it was off for a long time because I did not conform to the binary that I was being presented with. The little boys in the village that I grew up with, I thought they were little assholes because they were always fighting and shooting and, fighting with swords and bullying and, and that I just couldn't fit into that. I tried, but I just couldn't. And I made myself wrong for that for a long time. I thought there was something wrong with me because I was in a man's body, and I couldn't express as what I saw was the only option for masculinity around me. So I played with girls. I learned how to sew little quilted sleeping bags for my stuffed animals and played hopscotch and all that stuff, and had a great time. But making myself feel wrong for it for a long, long time until I was in my 40s. Anyway, I can get very, very detailed, so just reel me in.
No, I can
track.
connect. No, this is perfect because I mean, a lot of us, especially for those of us who identify as a different sexual orientation, it's really interesting how that gives you an outside perspective of this norm, especially culturally. And I think it's an added flavor that it's like a blessing in this, to have that spiritual upbringing and have that sexual differences. I think it's amazing. So please continue.
Oh, I'm so glad you say this because I really see life like that. Like I'm lucky to not have been sort of steamrolled over by the muggleness of it all, because I already knew that I didn't fit in. I wasn't seen as preferable in society, and so I was looking at it from the outside in. So I had that sort of disconnect or distance to it. It wasn't, it wasn't first nature to me to be part of it. And so I this is how I work with my clients as well. I see the things that we have been conditioned to believe are bad about us or not good enough. They're really our vehicles for empowerment, because when we embrace these parts of ourselves, we not only learn our own truth, but we also learn the truth about my client yesterday. I spoke with the higher self of a client, and this higher self called it an infection, which I thought was so appropriate. The way of thinking that's going on in society, like in the United States here, the biggest umbrella of sort of thinking is that that we're all supposed to be white and male and masculine and straight and Christian and maybe Republican right now, and there's nothing wrong with individuals that express that way, but is it accurate that there's one standard that is supposed to go for all of us expressing and source in many, many different ways? So I think when people embrace the truth of who they are, they become unapologetic about who they are, and they anchor this truth and this vibration onto the planet. And I think we strengthen this new way of being by doing this and helping others to do the same thing.
Yes, so that's beautiful.
This is what my whole journey has been about. But going back to where did we leave off? I think when I was 8 years old.
Story.
Right. Yeah. So let's see. So then just life happened growing up. My mom and dad were so sweet to take me to the anti-nuke demonstrations that happened in the 80s in the Netherlands, to give me sort of a sense of, they saw how worried I was about the planet, and to give me some sense of empowerment. Wow. They took me to these big demonstrations that happened in The Hague and Amsterdam, I think, back in the 80s. This is just a little credit for my parents. Yeah, that was really, really nice they did that. And then I dropped out of high school, couldn't be part of that system, was part of a democratic school that was housed in a squat when I first joined it. And this is where I learned about iriscopy and healing and yoga, and we would learn how to grow vegetables in the garden, and we had a say in what happened with the school. So that was more in alignment with kind of the sovereignty that I felt about my own being, that was way in the background, but it was existing somewhere. And then after school, I kind of wandered about, never really fit into any jobs, just did, what do you call them? Like simple jobs. I was on welfare for quite a while. This was possible in the Netherlands. And then I finally, through a breakup that was really tough, I was propelled forward to start dance. So I became a dancer for a bit, but I dropped out of there as well because I did the Landmark Forum. It's a large seminar that leads people through a series of insights that's very, very helpful to a lot of people. But I came out of it feeling completely stripped of anything that I had so far based my security on. And it was just a visceral security that was just stripped from me. I felt like every step that I took and every breath that I took was just a complete lie. I felt like I was suspended between life and death. And, you know, this has been, what, 25 years ago? So looking back at it, you know, I was blown out of my body completely. However much was in my body, it was blown out of it. And this happened because my circuitry came online. I learned later that I had shut down my energetic circuitry to a great degree to not have to process the density on the planet and, you know, run the risk of going crazy. And so, or, you know, leaving reality altogether. And so I was able to do this when I was 26, when I was going through the Landmark experience. And this is what I call my biggest spiritual awakening so far, because it propelled me forward to have to heal myself. And I knew at the time, even though I was thinking that, you know, I didn't know how to live and I considered suicide, but that I didn't want to take any psychiatric medication. I knew that was going to be counterproductive. So I found holistic healers, energy healers that helped me tremendously. And then I learned about the emotional body. I did bioenergetics for a number of years with a therapist. And I learned about feeling and how my sense of feeling self had been suppressed greatly. So going through these therapies myself, feeling the empowerment and the added presence on the planet and incarnation that I felt, I thought it was really beautiful. And so I wanted to be able to provide this for other people as well. I had been studying Reiki in Canada with a wonderful Reiki master. And her way of Reiki was more process oriented. So we would use sound as a medium to bring up suppressed energies and feelings and process them. And I felt such amazing shifts in consciousness as a result of this, where I felt like becoming more and more present on the planet with my authenticity, not shutting myself down. And so this is a process that continues up until today. And this is what is the backdrop of the work that I do, with the different tools that I use, that I help people unlock their own authenticity, or if it's already there, to fuel the flames and to defrag their or our way of thinking about reality, that this, you know, this muggleness that's been around on the planet for so long is not life affirming. You know, we shouldn't be looking there for our solace or our truth about ourselves. We should not take the voices of the world as our point of reference for who we're here to be, because we're all unique expressions of source. And looking at ourselves from the perspective of, you know, the thinking on the planet is not kind. You know, there's no ism or a category or label out there that completely captures you, because you're completely unique. So instead of trying to fit your uniqueness into, you know, a job or a label or another way for you to get the acknowledgement or being appropriate or good enough from the outside in, you know,
sense of security.
Yes, you know, we're really all here. This is what I believe. We're really all here to find who we are and fly our freak flag unapologetically.
Yes.
And help others to do the same thing.
Amen.
So
how is it that you're flying your freak flag now? Like, what is your main modality that you work with your clients, and how did you get into that?
Great. So yeah, I use quantum healing hypnosis technique, or QHHT. This was a technique developed by Dolores Cannon, and it started out being called past life regression, but it's called quantum healing because it surpasses just going into past lives, because there's really no such thing. And you know, she found out that people would go into future lives, or, you know, aliens would show up, or, you know, creator beings or dimensional beings, all kinds of stuff would happen. So that's why she had to changed the name to QHHC. But that's what I use mostly.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's so cool. And you talked a little bit about in the beginning how you feel like that show that you went down and watched about the post-nuclear war, you felt like was possibly in another dimension. I think that's such an interesting topic that you brought up, and I would love to hear more about that. Through your work, what is your understanding of parallel dimensions, and how has that come up in your work?
Wow. Okay. I mean, it's always shifting. I think through my clients. New information is added. Weekly. I just had 2 clients last week that experienced timeline shifts in their current waking state. They had experiences where they skipped into a different timeline where people believed different things about the planet, about things that were happening, and then shifted back. It was very freakish for them, but so what I believe, I don't know what the structure is that we are, as souls, we're more or less individuated parts of source. That's my best approximation of what I think we are, and that we choose to split off into these different existences that are all happening now because there seems to be no time. And we're just learning about ourselves, who we are as source. We're just engaging in all these different games with these different limiting rules and parameters as we find on Earth, and to find out through duality here who we are, in the doing of it. And then in terms of parallel realities, like I mean, this is what I've heard through my sessions, that, every decision that we make splits off into another fractal of experience, so that some part of our soul lives that experience in a parallel experience. And what else was I going to say about that? Okay, I think the vein is run dry. I don't know what else to say.
No, that's amazing because, I actually just made a video about this a couple of days ago, but I've definitely experienced some sort of shift in realities, I call it, because, for example, one time I was living on the Big Island of Hawaii, and I was at work, and we had this nuclear missile threat. Everyone on the island got a message, and it was like, prepare, seek shelter, you have 20 minutes to imminent nuclear threat. And I was like, what the fuck?
What the fuck? Yes.
Yeah, I was
God.
I was like, okay, I guess I'm gonna die. But surprisingly, the night before, I had just been thinking, I was like, what would I do if I were gonna die tomorrow? I want to make sure that if I die tomorrow, I let go of all anger, resentment, jealousy, hatred, anything that's would get me stuck or earthbound, basically. So I think it was interesting because I was experiencing such a state of surrender and gratitude and love and acceptance with the fact that I was going to die. And there was this very palpable feeling of a shifting of dimensions, a shifting of consciousness. I was sitting there and I felt something. I don't even know how to explain it, but as I was sitting there, texting my last goodbyes to my family, getting on Facebook, just like, hey, I love you guys. I felt this shift. And the next thing you know, on the news, it's like, oh, just kidding. There's no nuclear, there's no bomb coming. And it was really weird because I remember looking online, just trying to understand, I was like, this doesn't make sense. I feel like in one reality, a bomb actually did go off and kill everyone on the island. And I was looking up conspiracy theories, and there was this conspiracy theory that was this bomb's gonna drop in Hawaii and it's gonna be the beginning of World War III and blah blah blah. And I was like, you know what? I think my soul was not trying to go down that route. I think my soul was on a different timeline for a better Earth, for a better future. And because I was in that state of resonance with love and acceptance and peace, I just chose not to go down that path. So I really believe in this stuff, and other stuff like that's happened to me before, but I think that's amazing. So thanks for bringing that up.
Wow, that's an amazing story. I love hearing how you use that amazing, well, not amazing, but that very scary notification. I think it came on people's iPhones, right? Or people's phones. Yeah. Mm-hmm. As this way as a jumping board into experiencing all this gratitude and these higher frequencies. That's really amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to say something else about it, but I forgot. Oh my goodness. This happens when you're nearing your 50s.
It's okay.
Yeah.
If it comes back to you, definitely bring it up. But I just wanted to ask next, like, what is it your clients normally come to you for, and what are the kind of results that they get after they, when they're done with these sessions?
I'd say the most common question that people come in with is, what is my life purpose? What am I here to do? To get more clarity about that. But then there's also people coming in with emotional issues and physical issues, or like dimensional issues, or energy issues. So all the
it's
different
2019, baby.
Exactly.
We got
Yes.
dimensional issues. You can't go to a doctor for that.
Yes. Exactly. Like those people that came in last week that had these timeline experiences, timeline shifts, and it was just fascinating because I learn in every session different facets of reality. But yeah, the most common one, or the question that's at the top of the list, is, what is my life purpose? And during the work that Dolores Cannon brought onto this planet, people are able to connect to their higher self, or we call it subconscious mind, to a stronger degree than we're normally capable of when we're just focused externally in our day-to-day life, for most of us. But so when that happens, during a session, it gives us the most appropriate experiences from different existences. It can be, what people refer to as past lives or future lives. It can be dimensional lives where there's no time, or galactic beings, or creator beings in charge of seeding universes or galaxies. So were you going to say something?
No, I love that. This stuff comes up in my sessions with people, and I remember having a conversation with one of my clients that does past life regressions, and I did a regression with her, and she ended up on another lifetime as an alien, and then she was like so confused because she's never heard about it. And I'm like, girl, this is normal. I'm like, girl, this is normal.
Yes. Yeah. Those things are. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh yeah, those things are quite common. Like for people, like my client I had yesterday, she went to a planet that was mostly pink, and the beings she saw there, which she was part of, were also pink, and they were sort of squatty, and they were so full of joy, and there was gold energy as well, I think. And they were describing, and this is very, very common, how my client laying there, she was sort of an emissary or part of their group of beings, and coming to the planet to help raise the frequency of consciousness. And this is what happens over and over and over in these sessions, that people find out about their otherworldly origins, and that their purpose on the planet here is to help raise the frequency of consciousness, and that they're doing that by their own unique expression of source that they are. And it's about like finding what that is, or my questioning will be about like, what does that look like on the planet in our daily lives? Are they here to be helping people physically, like providing material, or like counseling, or energy healing, or just by their beingness on the planet? It can take so many different forms. So it's to get that clear. And your question about like, how are people helped by it? So they find out what their purpose is, and whenever you connect to your higher self, healing takes place. And so that can extend to the physical. So people do get up off the table, and they find that physical issues have been dealt with. Like my client yesterday, she was healed from the toxins that were carried inside of her body for so long, for being on the planet. The food that we have eaten, toxins that we inhale, living in cities, but also other people's toxins, their energies. So they were cleared completely. So that is really the point of the work of Dolores's work, to help people move forward in their current lifetime. So it's not just sort of past life tourism, but it's really about healing and up-leveling and recovering your identity as a spiritual being, having a human experience.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah, I think this work is so underrated, and I can't scream enough about it. It's really hard for people to understand this type of healing that goes on. And if you don't study it, and if you don't experience it yourself, it's really hard to wrap your head around it. But I really think this is the future, and this is going to be commonplace in the next couple of years. And, just being able to, I've heard people that have restored sight, restored hearing. I've had people,
Exactly.
it's
Yeah,
like
that
next
all
level
happens.
shit. It's next
Yeah.
level. And, so thank you so much for sharing your medicine. And let me just say, while you were talking that whole time, normally I have people's videos off, but there's literally like this aura of a light that's been just shining right over your head, like a golden light. I love it.
Oh yeah, this is my window, I think, here, the way that I'm sitting. Yeah,
I
but
know, it just
hey,
looks
I'll
so
take it.
cool. No, I understand it's a light, but it's cool. It's like, those paintings of like, back in the day, they got the orbs behind their head. It's like,
Right. I'm looking at it now because I wasn't focused on the. But I see it now. It's like my crown chakra is completely open or something, or
you're woke
that's what
as
it looks like.
you're woke as fuck.
I am woke as fuck. Yay.
Awesome. So before we go, how can people get a hold of you? How can we schedule a session if we want to?
All right. So I'm based in Los Angeles, and I see people in person for this work. When people call their work QHHT, it's only done in person. So people can find me on Instagram. It's the best way. My name on Instagram is my first name, which is, I should spell it out. It's J as in John, E as in Erica, R as in red, O as in orange, E as in Erica, N as in Nancy. And then my affirmation is love. So that's all one word. My first name, Jeroen, is love. And that's the best way to find me. Or on my website, it's my first name, JeroenQHHT.com.
Awesome.
Yeah, those are the best way to find me. Thank you for asking me that.
Yeah, of course. And finally, if there's one thing that you could scream off the top of the rooftops for everyone, if they didn't get anything else from this message today, what would you say?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I've mentioned it, but to follow your joy, like your joy is your truth. Like I call it joy for fuck's sake. So whatever feels good to you, whether it is, being in nature or monster truck driving or, painting or dancing or screaming off the top of your lungs, the more that you follow your joy and listen to it and create experiences of joy in your life for yourself, the more that you'll become present with the truth of who you are, because that
Ooh,
is who you are. Yeah.
beautiful. Oh my God, I love that. That is amazing. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for tuning in into this episode. Definitely a lot of information and insights. You might have to go back and listen to it again. But Jeroen, thank you so much for being here today. And everyone, we will catch you next time for another episode of Woke as Fuck. Peace.